Hello and welcome to the FARG Motorpool. In a diversion away from our usual content, which is looking at driving armoured cars, tanks and restoring military vehicles, we're going to be looking at this today. And this is thermite. What is thermite, you ask? Okay, it's a chemical compound that burns with an enormous temperature once you set it alight. So it burns between 2000 to 2500 degrees. What's it usually used for? It can melt together or weld together steel tracks, but in this case we're going to use it to destroy military equipment. Usually in this format, which is a thermite grenade. The pin is pulled, the percussion cap fires, the thermite's ignited, and from the bottom is a stream of molten metal. This will burn through most things, and it's used to disable military vehicles, especially burning through the bonnets of jeeps and into the engines, or even over the backs of tanks. So today what we're going to try and do is see how military items hold up against this 30 kilograms of thermite. We'll be burning it inside of this, which is our equivalent of a crucible. Inside is a hole which will let the molten metal out, and so we can control the burn and control where the molten metal's exiting, and therefore make an effective burn. This video is sort of in memory of one of the terrible tragedies of the Second World War, which was the bombing or the Blitz of Bristol. In it was dropped an enormous amount of thermite, mostly in the format of this, which is a German incendiary bomb. There's a percussion cap at the end, it ignites the thermite inside, and this very thin wall of magnesium oxide burns away, and there's no way of putting this out. Placing into water is quite dangerous, so it's really to heap sand on the top of it and see if you could control the burn. You can actually see on this one where it has hit the ground, but fortunately for me it didn't ignite, so I'm able to show this to you. The first item that we are going to destroy is this. This is a small Italian figurine who shall remain nameless, and we'll see if he can hold up against the might of thermite. Number two, we'll be looking at this, which is a mess tin made of aluminium and used by armies throughout the world. We will see if it can contain the molten metal produced by the thermite. Next, we will be looking at this. This is a steel helmet, as used by the French forces, an M51 to be exact. A steel outer shell and the fibre inner. We'll see how long that lasts against the might of thermite. And if that wasn't enough, we'll be looking at burning this very jerry can, which I know has got a little bit of fuel in the bottom of it, so it might be quite an explosive item. We'll be seeing how the jerry can holds up against the might of thermite. And lastly, we will be looking at this. And this is a box of ammunition. To spice it up slightly, we've left the rounds in here. So therefore, we will see what will happen when the molten metal falls against these, mostly 7.62 rounds. And lastly, as a little surprise for you, we're going to burn something special. Let's go and have a look. Here is our final piece. This is the piece of armour that we're going to burn through, and this is the superstructure from an AMX 13 VTT. So here's a little one-man turret with a 50 cal in there, and we'll be trying to burn through this armour later on in the video. So don't go away. Now for the boring stuff. I have to tell you about the dangers of using this material. It is, once ignited, nearly impossible to put out. So therefore you've got to be really careful where you're burning it. You want to keep it away from sources of water, because it can turn the water into steam very rapidly, and that can in some cases create an explosion, both of the molten metal and of hot steam. Also, it burns with a very, very bright light, so therefore it is best for you to wear some sort of protection for your eyes. We have fire extinguishers, we have a fire party here, we've also got a chap that owns a special effects company called SFX, and he will be helping us with the burns to do it in a controlled manner. To light it is quite difficult because this is industrial thermite, so therefore we're going to be doing it with magnesium flares and done on a remote, so we don't need to be anywhere near it. Don't worry, we'll be filming it quite closely so you'll get to see it. Please Don't try this at home. It's not illegal to own, and it's not illegal to use, but it is very, very dangerous. Goodbye, Mr. Italian figurine. What is left of the aluminium mess tin. It is completely and utterly melted. In fact, the heat was so great that the pot, terracotta pot, is melted as well, and you can absolutely hear it burning down through these paving slabs. So we're going to stand back. There might be a pop in a minute as it carries on going into the earth, and we'll look at our next object. Right through. Someone's had for me. The items that we tried to destroy, this was probably the most spectacular to date. You can actually see that the thermite is burnt completely through the crown of the helmet. You can still hear it cracking now under the heat. This thing at the back here is the liner, or what's left of it. So if thermite was to hit a soldier and he was wearing a helmet like this, straight through, and I'm afraid that would be the fate of his head. Hear the diesel boiling off inside of the jerry can. The thermite burnt a hole through the top, and the steel fell inside and mixed with the fuel and then ignited it. It came out in sort of a jet, which then rocked the jerry can and it fell over. So the integrity of the can is actually still intact apart from the hole in the top. You can actually see it here. It seems a little bit bloated, and that's because the fuel inside is expanded. So we're going to do one more burn now on the side of this to try and get that penetration all the way through. see, it actually handled it really, really well. The Thermite's burnt inside, burnt all the fuel off, but the can is still intact. What a fantastic design those jerry cans are. Ted is our explosives expert, so we're letting him lay all the charges and we're just here for the ride. Right, so we're towards the end of it now. So the Italian figurine went very easily. Great, the mess tin made of aluminium completely disappeared. The helmet burnt a hole straight through it, that was quite spectacular. A bit windy here, hope you can hear me. Then we've had a look at the jerry can, which when it had fuel in it and the lid was down created a nice jet. After that, not so great. Now we're working on the ammunition box, and inside of this is 7.62 ammunition. So we're going to be burning into that and seeing where that goes. For those who are very safety conscious of watching this video, it's not live ammunition, they are blanks, so therefore there'll be no projectiles coming out of that box, one hopes, but we will be retreating quite a distance before we set this one off. And then finally, the big finale, we'll be trying to burn a hole through the superstructure of this part of the tank behind me. Okay, our last attempt of the day, and we're going to try and take this Thermite down through the armour on this part of a tank infrastructure. We're going to do one of the tubs. There's a crucible already inside of it, so that's fantastic. That'll help focus the flow. We had to put these sort of fire bricks around it as well to try and focus that molten steel. Otherwise, when it comes out, it's just, or molten iron, when that comes out, it's just going to run all over the surface and like dissipate into the ground and not really give us our burning hole that we want. So therefore, we've raised it above. It's going to make a pool of hot metal, and hopefully that'll be hot enough to then go through the armour. So fingers crossed. Okay, so there we are in the actual vessel that it comes in, so it focused the heat. As you can see right over here, a hole punctured in it about 1 inch across, and that went really nicely straight down through, and I think it really was helped by the fact that we funneled the molten metal into a small spot and then it punctured. So this has made us think that if you can funnel it and focus maybe we could use a smaller amount of thermite and achieve the same results. So we talked earlier in the video about the hand grenades, these thermal hand grenades, thermite hand grenades indeed. So we're going to try now with a replica of a thermite grenade. It's basically steel pipe. We filled it to the brim, so we've got about 200, how much have we got in there, 150, 200 grams, and we will try and ignite this directly on top of the tank superstructure. So let's place it. It's a bit hot, we don't want to set the thing on. Okay, so there we go. Let's get it lit and see what happens. Okay, well that's fine, so we've proven the point. So there we go, didn't work this time, did it? I think the fact was we didn't have enough thermite, and what happens, it sort of leaked at the bottom and then ran across into the hole that was already there and then went through. So for a moment we thought it had gone through, but it hadn't. I'll just show you what's left. Very hot, very distorted, but didn't work. So there we are, in summary, a whole day of it for us and only probably about 10 minutes for you. So we started off with the melting of a plastic Italian figurine. He's gone. The mess tin was quite good. The aluminium of the mess tin melted completely and sort of reacted with it as well and created a lot of interesting smoke that we definitely did not breathe in. That was then followed by, I'm trying to think now, that was followed by the helmet, which was great. It was great to see how that molten steel ran over the brim but still burnt through the middle. We went on to the jerry can, which on the first burn was quite explosive because it built pressure up inside, but on the second burn there was a hole already in it, so it just wasn't that spectacular. Then we tried the rounds, which were in the ammo box. What we're really impressed about with the ammo box was the fact that it contained the rounds when they went off, so they were all still actually inside the box. So it's great design, that particular type of box. And then we progressed on to try the tracks. Tracks weren't so successful. I think the problem was it pulled and there wasn't a sort of a jet as such. So although it heated up, we probably didn't use enough thermite. We then went on to the armour itself and it penetrated an absolute treat the first time we did it, because we let it pour down into a concentrated pool and that burnt through. So we did a second burn, which you saw then, that didn't actually penetrate, so that just left a scar on the top, really because the steel ran away. And there were some rounds underneath it went off as well. So on the whole, a very successful day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any comments or suggestions, we've got quite a bit of thermite we can carry on using. And watch out for our next video, in which we'll be having a look at the ubiquitous jerry can, in which we'll be testing one out, how it handles when it gets dropped, driven over by a jeep and then a tank, and finally, boom, we're going to try and blow one up. So thanks for joining me, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.